The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord was the largest structure ever built by intelligent beings. It floated in the empty space between three ancient stars, a massive ring of metal and crystal that could hold 10 million souls. For 12,000 years, every major decision affecting the known galaxy had been made within its walls. Treaties had been signed here. Wars had been ended here. Species had risen to power and fallen to dust, all under the watchful eyes of the Concord's ruling council. Today, something was about to happen that had never happened before. Ambassador Daniel Cooper stood at the center of the speaking floor, surrounded by the delegations of 47 alien species. Some of them looked almost human. Others were so strange that his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. There were beings made of living crystal, creatures that existed as clouds of gas held together by magnetic fields, and ancient machines that had outlived their creators by 1,000,000 years. All of them were watching him. All of them were waiting. Daniel was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, negotiating trade deals and peace treaties across 5 continents. Nothing in his career had prepared him for this moment. Nothing could have prepared anyone for this moment. 6 months ago, humanity had made first contact with extraterrestrial life. A Concord survey ship had detected radio signals coming from Earth and had sent a delegation to investigate. The aliens had come in peace, offering friendship and the chance to join the greatest civilization in galactic history. It had seemed like a dream come true. Humanity was not alone. There were others out there and they wanted to help. But dreams, Daniel had learned, could turn into nightmares very quickly. He cleared his throat and activated his translation device. The small machine clipped to his collar would convert his words into the hundreds of languages spoken by the beings around him. "Distinguished members of the Galactic Concord," he began, "I stand before you today with a heavy heart. The United Earth Federation has spent the last 6 months studying the membership agreement you have offered us. We have read every article, every subsection, every footnote. We have consulted with our greatest legal minds, our most experienced diplomats, and our leaders." He paused, looking around the chamber. The alien faces stared back at him, unreadable. "And we have reached a decision." High Arbiter leaned forward in her seat of honor. She was the leader of the Concord, and being nearly 3 meters tall with a shell that gleamed like polished obsidian. Her species, had founded the Concord 12,000 years ago and had ruled it ever since. "Speak your decision, Ambassador Cooper," she said. Her voice was a series of clicks and whistles that the translation device converted into cold, precise words. "The Concord awaits." Daniel took a deep breath. He thought about his wife, waiting for him back on Earth. He thought about his 2 daughters, both of them grown now with children of their own. He thought about the billions of people whose lives would be affected by what he said next. Then he spoke the words that would change everything. "The United Earth Federation formally declines membership in the Galactic Concord. We thank you for the opportunity, but we cannot accept your terms." The chamber erupted into chaos. Alien voices shouted in dozens of languages. Beings rose from their seats, gesturing with limbs and tentacles and appendages that had no human name. The translation device in Daniel's ear became a jumble of confused noise as it tried to process 100 simultaneous conversations. High Arbiter raised one of her 4 arms, and the chamber fell silent instantly. "You decline," she said. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. "In 12,000 years, no species has ever declined membership in the Concord. Do you understand what you are saying, Ambassador Cooper? Do you comprehend the consequences of this action?" "I understand perfectly, High Arbiter." "Then explain yourself. What possible reason could your people have for refusing the greatest gift the galaxy has to offer?" Daniel reached into his coat and removed a small data tablet. He had been carrying it with him for weeks, waiting for this moment. The information on it had cost 3 human lives to obtain. 3 brave men and women who had volunteered to infiltrate conquered databases, knowing they would probably never come home. Their names were classified. Their families would never know what they had done, but Daniel would remember them for the rest of his life. With respect, High Arbiter, I would like to ask you a question first. His compound eyes narrowed. You may ask, what happened to the eye? The silence that followed was different from before. It was heavier, darker, filled with something that Daniel recognized immediately. Fear. The eye, said slowly, were a troubled species. They suffered from internal conflicts and eventually destroyed themselves. It was a tragedy. I see. Daniel looked down at his tablet. And what about the X, the crystalline chorus, the 14 peoples of the Outer Rim? All tragic cases of self-destruction. The galaxy is a dangerous place, Ambassador. Species that cannot maintain order within their own borders often meet unfortunate ends. 14 species in 12,000 years, Daniel said. All of them destroyed themselves. All of them just happened to be species that had disagreements with conquered policy. He looked up at the High Arbiter. That's quite a coincidence, don't you think? His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation among her species. What are you implying, human? Daniel activated his tablet and sent its contents to every display in the chamber. Suddenly, the walls around them were covered with images, documents, and recordings that the conquered had spent thousands of years trying to hide. Images of conquered warships bombarding populated worlds. Documents ordering the sterilization of entire star systems. Recordings of conquered officials discussing how to eliminate troublesome species while making it look like natural disasters or internal conflicts. 14 species, billions upon billions of lives, all erased from existence because they had dared to question the conquered's authority. We found your records, Daniel said quietly. The ones you thought you had deleted, the ones you never expected anyone to find. The chamber was completely silent now, even seemed frozen in place, her compound eyes fixed on the images playing across the walls. The eye didn't destroy themselves, Daniel continued. They were exterminated because they refused to give up control of their resources. They were wiped out because they developed technology that threatened conquered supremacy. The X, the crystalline chorus, the 14 peoples, all of them died because they committed the ultimate sin in your eyes. He stepped forward, his voice rising. They said no. Finally found her voice. Those records are human propaganda designed to undermine the conquered's reputation. You cannot possibly expect anyone to believe such obvious lies. Then let's talk about something else, Daniel said. Let's talk about Article 47 of your membership agreement, the one that requires all member species to surrender control of their military forces to the conquered, or Article 112, which gives the Arbiter Council the right to determine population limits for each member world, or Article 873, which states that any colony established by a member species is subject to redistribution based on the collective needs of the conquered. He turned in a slow circle, addressing the entire chamber. You don't offer membership. You offer slavery. You take away a species' ability to defend itself, control how many children they can have, and claim ownership of every world they settle. And if anyone complains, if anyone tries to leave, you destroy them and pretend it never happened. Enough, rose from her seat, towering over the chamber like a dark statue. You speak of things you do not understand, human. The conquered has maintained peace in this galaxy for 12,000 years. We have prevented countless wars, stopped the spread of dangerous technologies, and guided primitive species toward civilization. The sacrifices we have made were necessary for the greater good. Necessary, Daniel repeated. Billions of innocent lives necessary. Entire civilizations erased from history necessary. Tell me, High Arbiter, how many more species will have to die before the galaxy is safe enough for you? He turned his back on her and faced the other delegations. Many of them were looking at the images on the walls with expressions of horror and recognition. Some of them, Daniel realized, had always suspected the truth. Others were seeing it for the first time. Humanity is a young species, he said. We have only been traveling among the stars for a few generations. We don't have the technology or the military power to challenge the conquered directly. If you decide to destroy us, you probably can. He paused, letting his words sink in. But we have something that none of you seem to have anymore. We have hope. We have the belief that tomorrow can be better than today, that our children can live in a universe where they don't have to be afraid. We have spent our entire history fighting for that belief, against enemies far more powerful than ourselves. And we have learned one thing above all else. Daniel looked directly at. The only way to truly lose is to give up, and humanity does not give up. He walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the silent chamber. His security detail, 2 Marines named Wells and Santos, fell into step beside him. They had been standing at attention throughout the entire speech, ready to give their lives to protect him. Daniel hoped it wouldn't come to that, but he wasn't counting on it. He was almost at the door when a voice stopped him. Ambassador Cooper. Daniel turned. A small alien was approaching him, moving with quick, nervous steps. It was one of the oldest species in the Conquered. They were known for their intelligence and their caution, rarely speaking up in council meetings. I am Scholar, the alien said. He had 4 arms and luminous silver eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. Might I walk with you? Daniel glanced at his Marines. Both of them had their hands near their weapons, ready to react at the first sign of trouble, but something about this manner suggested he wasn't a threat. If you wish, Daniel said. They walked together through the corridors of the Great Hall, surrounded by the strange architecture of the Conquered. The walls were covered with artwork from 1,000 different worlds, sculptures and paintings and holographic displays that told the story of galactic civilization. Or at least, the story the Conquered wanted people to believe. My people joined the Conquered 6,000 years ago, said quietly. We were young then, frightened of the universe and grateful for the protection the Conquered offered. It took us a long time to realize the truth. What truth is that? That protection and imprisonment are often the same thing, seen from different angles. Silver eyes met Daniel's. We have wanted to leave for a very long time, Ambassador, but leaving means death. The Conquered does not allow alternatives. I know, Daniel said. That's why we're leaving now before we're too deep in to get out. They will come for you. Perhaps not today, perhaps not tomorrow, but eventually they will find a reason. They always do. Daniel nodded. He had known this from the beginning. Humanity's refusal to join the Conquered was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning. We're counting on it, he said. Tilted his head, a gesture of confusion among his species. I do not understand. You know they will attack you and yet you deliberately provoke them. This seems unwise. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. It was no larger than his thumbnail, but it contained information that could change the galaxy. I want you to have this, he said, pressing the chip into his 4-fingered hand. It's a gift from my government, something we thought your people might find useful. What is it? Everything we learned about the Conquered, every record we recovered, every secret we uncovered, and something else, something more important. Daniel smiled. Instructions, a way to fight back if you ever decide you're ready. Stared at the chip as if it might explode in his hand. If they find this on me, they will kill me. They will kill my entire family line. I know, that's why you don't have to take it. The choice is yours. For a long moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, he closed his fingers around the chip and tucked it into a hidden pocket in his robe. Why are you doing this? He asked. You owe us nothing. If anything, species like mine bear responsibility for the Conquered's crimes. We stood by and did nothing while they destroyed innocent worlds. Because we're human, Daniel said simply. And this is what humans do. We help people. We fight for the ones who can't fight for themselves. It's not always smart and it's not always successful, but it's who we are. He extended his hand, a human gesture of friendship that probably didn't understand. But the reached out with one of his 4 arms and clasped it anyway. Good luck, Ambassador Cooper. I hope your species survives what is coming. So do I, Daniel said. But if we don't, at least we'll go down fighting. They parted ways at the entrance to the docking bay. Daniel watched the disappear into the crowd, a small figure carrying a small chip that might one day light a fire across the galaxy. Then he boarded his shuttle and headed back to the ship that would take him home. The Endeavour was waiting in orbit around the Conquered's capital station, a sleek vessel of human design that looked almost primitive compared to the alien ships surrounding it. Commander Lisa Monroe stood on the bridge, watching with growing unease. "They've got us boxed in," she said to her first officer, a young man named Samuel. 26 warships, all with weapons hot. If they decide to fire, we won't last 5 minutes. "Maybe they won't fire," Samuel said, without much conviction. "Maybe they'll just let us go." Lisa shook her head. "You heard the ambassador's speech. He basically told them everything we know about their dirty secrets and dared them to do something about it. They're not going to just let that slide." The comm system beeped. "Commander Monroe, this is Ambassador Cooper. I'm aboard the shuttle and heading your way. ETA 15 minutes. "Copy that, Ambassador. We'll be ready." Lisa turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Bobby. He was a stocky man with a shaved head and the kind of calm demeanor that came from years of combat experience. "Bobby, what's our status?" "Shields are at maximum, weapons are charged, and the jump drive is spooled up and ready to go." He paused, assuming it actually works. That was the question, wasn't it? The jump drive was humanity's secret weapon, a technology they had developed in complete secrecy over the past 6 months. It was based on principles that Conquered science said were impossible, which was exactly why the Conquered had never bothered to develop countermeasures against it. If it worked, the Endeavour could escape the blockade and return to Earth in a matter of seconds. If it didn't work, they would all die in the cold vacuum of space. Lisa preferred not to think about the second option. "Ambassador's shuttle is approaching," Samuel reported. "Bay doors are open. As soon as he's aboard, close those doors and prepare for emergency jump." Lisa gripped the armrests of her command chair. "Something tells me we're not going to have much time." The shuttle landed in the Endeavour's docking bay with a gentle thump. Daniel Cooper emerged, flanked by his 2 Marines, and was met by a young ensign who escorted him directly to the bridge. "Ambassador, welcome back," Lisa said. "How did it go?" "About as well as expected. The Conquered is not happy with us." Daniel took a seat in the observer's chair next to the command station. "I assume they've got us surrounded." 26 ships, probably more on the way. "Then we should probably leave before the party gets any bigger." Lisa nodded and turned to her crew. "All hands prepare for emergency jump. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, alarms began to sound. Crew members strapped themselves into their seats and held on tight. The jump drive had been tested exactly once before, on an unmanned probe that had vanished from one side of the solar system and reappeared on the other 3 seconds later. Whether it would work with a fully crewed ship remained to be seen. "Human vessel." The voice came over the comm system, cold and mechanical. "You are directed to power down your engines and prepare for inspection. Failure to comply will result in immediate enforcement action." Lisa looked at Daniel. "How do you want to handle this?" The ambassador smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Tell them we're experiencing technical difficulties. That should buy us a few minutes." And when they stop believing us, then we run like hell and pray the jump drive works. Lisa opened a channel to the Conquered fleet. Conquered vessels, this is the human ship Endeavor. We are experiencing minor technical issues with our propulsion system. Please stand by while we conduct repairs. The response came almost immediately. Human vessel, you have 60 seconds to comply with our directive. This is your final warning. Well, Daniel said, I guess that's that. The jump drive hummed to life, filling the ship with a vibration that seemed to resonate in the bones of everyone aboard. On the conquered warships began to move, closing in on the Endeavor like predators surrounding wounded prey. Jump drive at full power, Bobby reported. Ready on your command. Lisa took a deep breath. Jump. What happened next was difficult to describe. There was a flash of light, brighter than anything Lisa had ever seen, and a sensation of being stretched and compressed at the same time. For a fraction of a second, she existed everywhere and nowhere, her consciousness scattered across the infinite void between stars. Then it was over, and they showed the familiar yellow glow of Earth's sun. Jump successful, Samuel said, his voice shaking with relief. We're home. A ragged cheer went up from the bridge crew. They had done it. They had escaped the Conquered and made it back to Earth in one piece. But Lisa knew the celebration was premature. This was only the beginning. Get me a channel to command, she said. The president needs to know what's coming. In a bunker buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, President Harold received the news with grim satisfaction. He was a heavy-set man in his 60s, with a face that had been worn by years of difficult decisions. But his eyes were still sharp, still calculating, still looking for ways to turn disadvantages into opportunities. The Endeavor made it back, his chief of staff reported. Ambassador Cooper is requesting an immediate meeting. Grant it, and get Dr. Bell up here. If the Conquered is going to retaliate, we need to be ready. Dr. Bell arrived within the hour, escorted by a team of military personnel who treated her like the most valuable person on the planet. In many ways, she was the lead scientist on Project Prometheus, the secret program that had given humanity its only hope of survival against the Conquered. She was a small woman with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun and glasses that made her look like someone's grandmother. But behind those glasses was one of the most brilliant minds in human history. Mr. President, she said, taking a seat at the conference table, I assume you've heard the news. The Endeavor made it back. Ambassador Cooper gave the Conquered quite a speech. Good, that means they'll be angry. Angry enemies make mistakes. Harold studied her for a moment. You seem confident, Doctor. Care to share why? Smiled. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that no one else knew. Because we've been preparing for this moment for 6 months, Mr. President. From the day we realized what the Conquered really was, we've been building something they've never seen before, something they don't believe is possible. She activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed a network of satellites arranged in a precise geometric pattern around the sun. Each satellite was small, almost insignificant looking. Project Prometheus, she said. 72 platforms, each one capable of drawing power directly from our star. When activated, they create what we call a reality anchor field. In English, please. The Conquered's technology works by manipulating the fundamental forces of the universe. They bend gravity, twist electromagnetic fields, warp space itself. It's impressive, but it has a weakness. Smile widened. It only works if those forces are allowed to be manipulated. She gestured at the display, and the satellites began to glow with a soft blue light. The Prometheus field locks those forces in place. Within its area of effect, physics operates according to strict, predictable rules. Rules that humanity grew up with. Rules that say you can't just wave your hands and make things happen by magic. Harold leaned forward, understanding beginning to dawn on his face. "You're saying their weapons won't work." "Their weapons, their propulsion, their shields, everything that makes them superior to us. Inside the Prometheus field, we're on equal footing." Paused. "Actually, we might be better than equal. The Conquered has had the same technology for 12,000 years. They've never needed to innovate, never needed to adapt. We've been innovating and adapting for our entire existence." The president sat back in his chair, processing this information. It was almost too good to be true. A way to neutralize the Conquered's overwhelming technological advantage. A chance for humanity to survive. "How long until the network is fully operational?" "It already is, Mr. President. We activated it 2 days ago just in case. Everything inside Earth's orbit is covered by the field." Harold nodded slowly. "Then we have a fighting chance." "More than that, sir, we have an opportunity." His expression grew serious. "The Conquered has ruled this galaxy through fear for 12,000 years. They've convinced everyone that resistance is impossible, that their power is absolute. But if we can prove them wrong, if we can show the other species that the Conquered can be beaten, everything changes." "You want to start a revolution." "I want to give people hope. What they do with it is up to them." The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from Space Command. Admiral Frank's face appeared on the screen, his expression tense. "Mr. President, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures at the edge of the solar system. Approximately 50 warships, Conquered military configuration." Harold exchanged a glance with, "That was fast." "They're not wasting any time," she agreed. "They want to make an example of us before word of what happened spreads to other species." The president turned back to the screen. "Admiral, what's the status of our defenses?" "The Prometheus network is active and holding. We have 6 patrol cruisers in the inner system and another 12 on their way from the outer colonies. It's not much, but if Dr. Bell's technology works like she says it will, it might be enough." "It will work," said firmly. "Trust me." Harold looked at her for a long moment. Then he made his decision. "Admiral, prepare for combat, and send a message to those Conquered ships. Let them know that humanity is not afraid." The message was transmitted across all frequencies, reaching not just the incoming fleet, but also every ship and station in the surrounding star systems. Within hours, it had spread across half the galaxy. "This is President Harold of the United Earth Federation. To the Galactic Conquered, we know who you are, we know what you have done. The blood of 14 species stains your hands, and we will not be the 15th. You may have ships and weapons and 12,000 years of history behind you, but we have something you will never understand. We have the courage to say no. We have the will to fight for our freedom. And we have a surprise waiting for you when you arrive. So come, if you dare. Come and learn what it means to face a species that has nothing to lose and everything to gain. Come and discover why humanity has survived every challenge our universe has thrown at us. We are not afraid of you. We are not impressed by you. And we will never, ever surrender to you." Admiral X of the Conquered Third Fleet received the message with contempt. He was like the High Arbiter, with the same obsidian shell and compound eyes. But where was cold and calculating, X was aggressive and confident. He had commanded fleets for 300 years and had never lost a battle. This would be no different. "Primitive posturing," he said to his bridge crew. "The humans are afraid and trying to hide it with bold words. We will teach them the price of defiance." "Admiral, our sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures from those satellites around their star. Should we investigate before proceeding?" X waved dismissively. "Primitive defensive platforms. They probably think they can use them to damage our ships, destroy them, and proceed to the third planet." The fleet moved into the inner system, a wall of warships that could reduce a planet to molten slag in a matter of hours. As they approached the satellites, they detected more of the strange energy signatures, but X paid them no attention. That was his first mistake. "We are within range of the human," his weapons officer reported. "Awaiting your orders. Target the primary population centers. Begin with a warning bombardment. If they do not surrender within the hour, commence full planetary assault." "Understood, Admiral." The lead warship charged its main cannon, a beam of compressed plasma that could vaporize mountains. The weapon hummed with power, building to a crescendo that would end with the death of millions. And then something happened that X had never experienced before. The beam fired, streaking toward one of the human satellites. It should have torn through the primitive device like paper. Instead, it hit some kind of invisible barrier and simply stopped. The energy dispersed, scattering harmlessly into space. "What?" X leaned forward in his command chair. "Report what happened." "Unknown, Admiral. The weapon fired normally, but the beam was absorbed by something we cannot identify." The weapons officer's voice was confused and frightened. "It is as if our technology suddenly stopped working." "Fire again. All ships target those satellites." The fleet opened fire with everything they had. Plasma beams, gravity torpedoes, antimatter missiles, weapons that had destroyed civilizations and shattered worlds. All of them hit the same invisible barrier. All of them were neutralized. And then the barrier expanded. The Prometheus field washed over the conquered fleet like a wave, passing through shields and hulls as if they weren't there. Inside every ship, systems began to fail. Gravity generators sputtered and died, sending crew members floating into the air. Propulsion systems shut down, leaving ships drifting helplessly in space. Power cores destabilized, their exotic matter containment fields suddenly unable to contain the forces within them. 3 ships exploded outright, their cores going critical in an instant. 5 more suffered catastrophic failures that left them crippled and venting atmosphere. The rest were simply stuck, unable to move or fight or do anything except watch as the impossible unfolded around them. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral X experienced something he had never felt before: fear. "What is happening?" he demanded. "What have they done to us?" "Unknown, Admiral. Our technology is simply not functioning. It is as if the fundamental laws of physics have changed." "That's impossible." But the evidence was all around him. His mighty fleet, the pride of the conquered military, had been reduced to helpless hulks in a matter of minutes. Without their advanced technology, they were nothing. And the humans knew it. A communication came through on the emergency channel, cutting through the chaos on the bridge. It was the face of President Harold, looking calm and confident. "Admiral X, I presume. My name is Harold. I believe you've met our Prometheus field. What is the meaning of this? What have you done?" "We've leveled the playing field, Admiral. Your technology doesn't work here. Neither do your weapons, your shields, or your engines." Smiled. "You came here expecting to find a primitive species you could bully into submission. Instead, you found something else. You found humans." X's mandibles clicked furiously. "You cannot do this. The conquered will not stand for such defiance. We will bring every ship in the fleet against you." "You're welcome to try, but I should warn you, we've been preparing for this for a long time. We knew you would come. We knew you would try to destroy us, just like you destroyed 14 species before us. And we decided that we would rather die fighting than live as slaves." The president's expression grew serious. "So here's what's going to happen, Admiral. Your functional ships will be allowed to leave our space. You will return to the conquered and deliver a message from humanity. Tell them that we are not afraid. Tell them that we will never surrender. And tell them that if they come for us again, we will be waiting." "And if I refuse, if I order my ships to fight?" Shrugged. "Then you'll die. Your ships can't move, your weapons can't fire, and we have 6 cruisers approaching your position as we speak. They're small, and they're not very advanced by your standards, but inside the Prometheus field they don't need to be." On the 6 human warships emerged from behind the orbital platforms, moving in formation toward the crippled conquered fleet. They were tiny compared to the alien vessels, but they were armed, and they were ready. Admiral X looked at the approaching ships, then at the disabled systems all around him. For the first time in 300 years, he faced an enemy he could not defeat through force alone. "We will leave," he said finally. "But this is not over, human. The Conquered has resources you cannot imagine. We will find a way to defeat your technology, and when we do, your species will be erased from history." "Maybe," agreed. "Or maybe the other species in your Conquered will see what happened here and start asking questions. Maybe they'll wonder why you've been lying to them for 12,000 years. Maybe they'll decide they don't want to be slaves anymore." He leaned forward, his eyes hard. "You built your empire on fear, Admiral. Fear of what would happen if anyone dared to stand against you. Well, we're standing, and every species in the galaxy is watching. What do you think they're learning?" The connection cut off, leaving X staring at a blank screen. It took 12 hours for the conquered fleet to limp out of human space. The Prometheus field released them once they passed a certain point, their systems coming back online as they left the area of effect. But the damage was done. Ships that had been invincible were now crippled. Crew members who had been confident were now terrified. And across the galaxy, word was beginning to spread. The humans had said no. The humans had fought back. The humans had won. It was impossible. It was unprecedented. It was exactly what trillions of beings across 1,000 worlds had been waiting to hear. In the council chambers of the Galactic Conquered, High Arbiter received Admiral X's report in cold silence. Around her, the other members of the Arbiter Council shifted nervously, none of them wanting to be the first to speak. "This is unprecedented," one of them finally said. "A primitive species defeating a conquered fleet. It should not be possible." "And yet it happened," replied. "The humans have developed technology that neutralizes our advantages. We cannot simply overwhelm them with superior firepower." "Then what do we do? If we appear weak, other species may begin to question our authority." "Other species are already questioning our authority." Brought up a holographic display showing messages intercepted from across the galaxy. Encrypted communications between member species, whispered conversations in dark corners, data packets that spoke of hope and rebellion and freedom. "The humans have not just defeated our fleet. They have given our subjects something far more dangerous than weapons. They have given them an idea. Then we must destroy them, completely and utterly, make an example that no one will ever forget." "And how do you propose we do that? Their technology works where ours does not. Every ship we send into their space becomes helpless." The council fell silent, none of them having an answer. Rose from her seat and walked to the window that looked out over the great hall. Somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, a young species was changing everything she had spent her entire life building. She should have been angry. She should have been afraid. But instead, she felt something she had not experienced in centuries. She felt uncertain. "We will find a way," she said finally. "We have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years because we are patient. We are thorough. We do not make the same mistake twice." She turned to face the council. "Send word to our scientists. I want to know how the humans' technology works and how to defeat it. Spare no resources. And in the meantime, we wait, we watch, and we prepare for what is coming." Because something was coming. Could feel it in her bones, a change sweeping across the galaxy like a wind before a storm. The humans had lit a spark, and that spark was spreading. The question was whether it would grow into a fire that would burn the conquered to the ground. On Earth, the celebrations lasted for 3 days. People danced in the streets, sang songs of victory, and toasted the heroes who had saved their world. For the first time since the conquered had made contact, humanity felt hope for the future. But in the bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, President knew that the celebration was premature. They had won a battle, not a war. The conquered would be back, with new strategies and new weapons, and a determination to crush humanity once and for all. He stood at the window of his office, looking out at a simulated view of the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were hearing about what Earth had done. Some of them would be inspired, some of them would be terrified, and some of them would be wondering if maybe, just maybe, the universe could be different. Ambassador Daniel Cooper entered the office, looking tired but satisfied. "They have made contact," he said. "They're interested in what we have to offer. The data chip you gave them. They shared it with other species, quietly through secure channels. The information is spreading." Daniel sat down across from the president. "We've started something here, Harold, something bigger than us." "I know," turned from the window. "That's what worries me." "Worries you? This is exactly what we wanted." "What I wanted was for humanity to survive. What's happening now could bring down an empire that has stood for 12,000 years. The president shook his head. "I'm not sure we're ready for what comes after that." Daniel was silent for a moment, then he smiled. "Maybe not, but we'll figure it out. That's what humans do, isn't it? We face impossible challenges and we find a way through them. We always have. And if we can't, then at least we tried. At least we stood up for what was right. At least we gave the galaxy a chance to be free." Looked at his old friend, seeing the conviction in his eyes. Daniel Cooper had risked everything to deliver humanity's message to the conquered. He had known the dangers and faced them anyway. He was exactly the kind of person humanity needed in this moment. "You really believe we can do this? Take on an empire and win?" "I believe we don't have a choice. The conquered will never leave us alone. They can't afford to. If humanity survives, if we prove that their power can be challenged, then everything they've built starts to crumble." Daniel leaned forward. "So yes, I believe we can do this, because the alternative is extinction, and I refuse to accept that." The president nodded slowly. Then he reached out and shook Daniel's hand. "Then let's get to work. We have a galaxy to save." The news of humanity's victory continued to spread across the stars. In hidden corners and secret meeting places, beings of every species gathered to discuss what it meant. Some were afraid, convinced that the conquered would crush the humans and punish anyone who had sympathized with them. Others were excited, seeing for the first time a possibility that had seemed impossible for thousands of years. And in a small laboratory on a distant world, scholar of the sat alone, studying the data chip that Ambassador Cooper had given him. The information it contained was extraordinary. Technical specifications for the Prometheus technology, historical records proving the conquered's crimes, strategic analyses suggesting weaknesses in the empire's structure. But what caught attention most was a simple message, written in the straightforward style of human communication. "We don't know if this will work. We don't know if anyone will listen. But we know that change has to start somewhere. If you're reading this, you're part of something bigger than yourself. You're part of a movement that could transform the galaxy. Don't be afraid. Don't give up. And remember, the stars are meant to be free." Read the message 3 times, feeling something stir in his chest. It was an emotion he had not experienced in a very long time. It was hope. He closed the data chip and tucked it safely away. Then he began to compose a message to others of his kind, others who had spent their lives dreaming of a universe without the conquered's shadow. The humans had shown them the way. Now it was time to walk the path. Across the galaxy, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the struggles of the tiny beings who lived beneath them. But something had changed. A seed had been planted, a flame had been lit, a voice had spoken words that echoed through the void. Humanity had pulled back from talks, and the stars had shaken with uncertainty. It was only the beginning. In the weeks that followed, Earth became the center of something unprecedented. Representatives from a dozen species arrived in secret, using hidden routes and encrypted communications to avoid Concord detection. They came to see the humans who had done the impossible. They came to learn. They came to hope. Dr. Bell met with scientists from worlds she had never heard of, sharing the principles behind the Prometheus technology. Not the technology itself, not yet. That would be too dangerous. But the ideas, the concepts, the understanding that the universe was not as limited as the Conquered wanted everyone to believe. "You have changed everything," a physicist told her. "For 6,000 years, we were told that certain things were impossible. You have proven that we were lied to." "We proved that the Conquered doesn't know everything," replied. "Neither do we. But together, we might figure out more than any of us could alone." Ambassador Daniel Cooper became the face of humanity's new diplomacy, traveling to secret meetings and establishing connections with species that had never dared to defy the Conquered. He was careful, patient, always aware that one wrong move could bring disaster. But he was also determined. Every species he met, every hand he shook, every alliance he formed brought humanity one step closer to survival, and one step closer to the day when the Conquered's grip on the galaxy would finally break. President watched it all unfold from his bunker beneath the mountains, making decisions that would shape the future of his world and countless others. He was not a hero. He was not a warrior. He was just a man trying to do what was right in the face of impossible odds. But that, he was beginning to understand, was exactly what heroes were. The Conquered, meanwhile, was not idle. High Arbiter had put every resource at her disposal into finding a way to defeat the Prometheus technology. Scientists worked day and night, analyzing the data from the failed invasion, searching for weaknesses that could be exploited. But progress was slow. The humans had created something truly new, something that operated on principles the Conquered had never explored. It would take time to understand it, time to develop countermeasures. Time that the Conquered might not have. Because every day that passed, more species were learning the truth. More beings were questioning the authority they had accepted without thought for thousands of years. More voices were whispering the words that the Conquered feared most. Freedom, hope, change. The galaxy was waking up, and when it finally opened its eyes, nothing would ever be the same again. On Earth, a young girl named Lucy, the president's granddaughter, stood on the roof of her family home and looked up at the night sky. She was 8 years old, too young to understand everything that was happening, but old enough to know that the world had changed. "Grandpa says we're going to be okay," she told her mother. "He says the bad aliens can't hurt us anymore." Her mother smiled and put an arm around her. "Your grandpa is a very smart man." "But the stars look the same," Lucy said. "If everything changed, why do the stars look the same?" Her mother was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer. "Because the stars don't care about our problems, sweetheart. They just keep shining, no matter what happens down here. That's what makes them beautiful." Lucy nodded, accepting this explanation with the simple faith of childhood. Then she pointed at a particular star, bright and steady in the darkness. "That one's my favorite," she said. "I'm going to visit it someday." "Maybe you will," her mother replied. "After everything that's happened, I think anything is possible." They stood together in the darkness, two humans among billions, looking up at a universe that had suddenly become much bigger and much more uncertain, but also somehow much more full of hope. The stars shone down on them, as they had for billions of years, and would continue to shine for billions more. They did not know or care about the tiny creatures who looked up at them with wonder and fear and hope. But the creatures knew. They understood that the universe was vast and ancient and full of dangers beyond imagining. And they understood something else, something that had kept humanity going through every challenge they had ever faced. The darkness between the stars was wide, But it was not empty. It was full of possibilities, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to look. Humanity had looked, and what they had seen had changed everything. Now it was time to see what would happen next. The end.